I'm Scott's mother, Pat. I've written down a few things, um, some thoughts I want to share, and I wrote them down. Hopefully, that'll help me get through it. Um, so here we go. Scott had an easygoing, down-to-earth nature with an outgoing personality and a quirky sense of humor. He made everybody around him comfortable. He had a passion for adventure and always wanted to try something new. As a boy, he played everything you can imagine: baseball, soccer, basketball, hockey, football. He skateboarded, wasn't afraid to try anything. And he always had his friends around him. He had many hobbies and interests as well. He loved music, playing guitar with his friends. Um, Last time I spoke to him, he was in a music store just after Christmas, and he said, "Mom, you should see this guitar. It's awesome." And I said to him, I said, "Didn't you just get a guitar a couple of weeks ago?" He said, "Yeah, but this one's different. It's smaller. It's for a different type of music. It has a different sound." And he went on to tell me why this guitar was, terrific. And then he closed with, and I guess I better not buy it. He loved to listen to music as well, all kinds of music. He loved jazz, some questionable music, old rock. He listened to a lot of the stuff I listened to when I was younger, but full range, totally open to listening to anything. Just recently, a few months back, I boxed up a couple boxes of the LPs that he still had here. He's got a huge collection, and sent them to West Vancouver for him, along with his record player that he was desperate to get. This record player is older than I am. I asked him, I said, "Why am I shipping this? Why don't you just get something new? And, the records will sound so much better." But his response was, "No, I like the authentic sound of the old RCA record player." So that was Scott. He enjoyed photography, and anybody that knows him has seen his photographs that he's taken. They're just absolutely amazing. Just like everything else that he did, he researched the camera forever, bought this, what he thought to be the best camera, and every lens he could possibly think that he would need, and he just went on to learn everything he could about it. Different exposures, practicing, he'd go on hiking trips and things like that just so that he could practicing, but he loved it, and they were beautiful, breathtaking shots. He enjoyed art galleries. He loved art. I had the opportunity to go with him a few times, and it was a nice experience. Like he really got into it and looked at the paintings and talked about the artist, and it was an experience. He really loved the art. He had a passion for cooking, tremendous cook. Loved cooking for his friends and Courtney. Very, very talented. Would always be trying new dishes and experimenting. Then he'd text me with photographs of his latest creation. But that's something he was great at and loved to do. Scott didn't follow the norm. He liked to do things his own way. He always did. So at 18, he decided to backpack across Europe with his friend Matt. He had an outstanding experience. He stayed there as long as he could. He said, "I'm staying till my money runs out." But it was something that he talked about a lot when he came back. It was a great experience. And a couple years later, he decided to backpack across Canada. He thought, I'm going to explore the country and get a job on the way or wherever he ended up. So he headed out. He ended up in British Columbia, where he had a bunch of friends, which made me feel more comfortable. And he ended up getting himself a job in Vancouver at a thrift shop. Yeah, he worked there for a couple of years. He loved it. That's where he found quite a few of his treasures. That's where he found that old record player and some old dishes that he collected. But he liked old things. He didn't like he didn't like new things. He preferred antiques and, you know, things with some kind of a story or a, you know, a history. But again, after working there for that couple of years, he felt the need for a little bit more adventure, and he headed out and headed down to California. He stayed down there for, I think, a couple of months, and he called me and said, Mom, you know, it's having a blast, it's great, he really enjoyed everything about it. But eventually, you know, he decided, he said, I guess I got to come back. So we decided to have a vacation together. So he took the Greyhound bus from California to Florida. I flew down, and we had an amazing week. I spent a week. We went to Disney World, Universal Studios, and I got to do that with my 21-year-old son. We had a blast. It was a great time. It was a great time. But when he came back, he went back to school in Hamilton. He decided he needed to come up with some ideas for a career. So he completed his studies at Mohawk College for a medical device reprocessor, and he got a great job at Joseph Brant Hospital. You know, he'd cycle from home here to work when he could, when the weather was good. Met some new people, new friends. But over time, he told me, he said, you know, Mom, I hate the job. And his words were, he said it was mindless work. He says, if I'm going to do something for the rest of my life, I want to use my brain. I want to make a difference. I want to do something that matters. So he went back to school again and enrolled in an environmental studies program. And with that, he came out as an environmental technician. The grades he got were like nothing he'd ever had before. In his early years, school wasn't his strength, but his marks were great. He had a passion for what he was doing in this program. He had a reason to learn. So he applied for positions all over Canada, but his ideal position came up. And he applied for it and got it in Squamish, British Columbia. He loved BC. He always said to me he wanted to go back. So he packed up and moved out to Squamish. He got the job as a technician. And for that company, he was the first plant operator. And from there, he just continued to study and learn all he could about the processes that he worked on. He continued to progress with the company. He just always wanted to know more, do more, go further. And just in the last couple of months, he had just applied to go back to school. He said to me, he said, you know what, if I'm going to go any further, he says, you know, I want to advance my career, I've got to go back. And he'd registered. That's what he was planning to do. So about a year and a half ago, I had the opportunity to go out and visit him. And it was awesome. We spent 10 days together. He put together this amazing itinerary, and he had everything planned out and researched, as he always would. We went, he had booked a Airbnb for Victoria Island. It ended up being this retro 70s thing with a leather couch and an old-fashioned turntable that had records in it. It was really cool. And we did whale watching there. We went to a gallery, a museum. It was a great time. It was awesome. And then one day he took me for a hike. So we went to Souk Outlook. And great big massive trees, and we're going through the forest, and it was beautiful. It was really nice. But at the end of this path, it opened out to the water and the mountains, and it was stunning. So I went about taking pictures and such, and Scott climbed up the side of a cliff And he had his big fancy camera, taking shots, and then he hollered, "Hey lady, come on up." And I said, "Oh, I don't think so." And he said, "No, you can do it." So I climbed up the side of this cliff, and we sat up there, and it was unbelievable. We sat up there for a while, and the sun was on the water, and he took a few more videos and shots, and it was an awesome experience. It's the best vacation I ever had. It was planned from time to time to time. The one day we stayed home, he made dinner for Courtney and I, and we did a buffet on the floor, and it was just awesome, just outstanding. So he loved and supported his dad, Laurie. He had a really special relationship with his dad. Laurie moved to West Vancouver last year sometime, and they spent a lot of time together over the last year, which is great. You know, Scott wanted to look out for him, and I just remember what Scott said to me a few years ago. He said, "You know what, Mom? My dad's my best friend." You know, and it blew me away when he said it, but you know what? Lucky man, Laurie. That's awesome. Laurie told me something the other day too. He said, you know, whenever Scott would come over and they'd go for coffees, he said, Scott would ask him every day, he said, "What did you learn today, Dad?" You know, he just wanted to make sure Laurie was keeping himself involved and, you know, keeping his mind active. Scott had a passion for knowledge and always reading and researching any subject. He loved talking about what he'd learned, and he loved to share it. He would call me and on any topic, and you know, I just saw this, or I just, you know, learned this, and you know, and it's super interesting to listen to. Very smart young man. So he loved his brother Justin completely. They spent so much time together in their younger years. They're only 17 months apart. You know, we vacationed together. They played on the same sports teams. They even had the same friends for most of the first part of their lives, just because they were so close in age. But as they got older, different interests took them in different directions. So Scott went his way he was out the West Coast, and Justin had his career here. But over the last couple of years, it's been great, but they've reconnected. You know, they talk, they'd FaceTime, and that's awesome. He was so proud of his brother and his brother's accomplishments in his career, in anything he did, but mostly he was proud of the family he'd made with Corrine and their beautiful daughter, Aria. He loved Aria. She's the cutest little thing you've ever seen. And he used to say to me, "I'm so bummed I'm missing her grow up. I want her to know her Uncle Scott. I want to, you know, be part of her life." Corrine and I would always send him photographs, and he loved them. He'd always answer, say, "Cool," you know. He just totally impressed with the fact she was so cute. And then he'd send me texts. He'd be out shopping, and he said he'd find these unique things in these unique shops, like the antique music box that he'd already given Aria. But he'd find these quirky little things and take pictures and send and say, "Mom, what do you think? Do you think she'd like this?" You know, any place that he went. Unfortunately, you know, he planned to come out a couple times in the last 12 months, and for reasons of quarantine and vaccines, he wasn't able to make it. He had to postpone it. But over Christmas, Justin, Corrine, and Aria, and Scott's dad, Laurie, they FaceTimed over Christmas, so Scott said it was awesome. They got to see the little one playing and running around, and at least he was getting to see that part of her growing up. He made a life for himself in a home in British Columbia, West Vancouver, with Courtney, who he loves so much, and their little dog, Wookie. He loved his life, his friends, his dad. He had his dream job. Had everything that he aspired to get, and he worked hard for everything that he had. I'm so proud of the life he made for himself. I can go on and on about his big heart, intelligence, integrity, and character. But over the last week, I've seen the extent of the people he's touched. Aunts, uncles, friends, co-workers who've shared the memories of his big heart, his sense of humor, and his friendship. This shows the true character of my son, Scott. He made a positive impact on this earth as he wanted to. Scott, I'll love you with all my heart for the rest of my life. Rest in peace, my little boy.